Good morning. This is Friday morning. I sure am glad to be with you today. I hope today is a good day for you and a blessed day. We are happy today. We began this morning early at 6 o'clock this morning. We had our first fall men's Bible study. And boy, did we have a great time today. We were talking about spiritual warfare. And it was really an interesting study, an interesting compilation of thoughts. And it was wonderful participation in that meeting as well. We just had a great time. And I appreciate the men who were there. I think we had 11 men that came out this morning at 6 o'clock to study together. And it was good, a great time together. And I appreciate the men being there. And we're ready for devotion, and perhaps God will give us something. We're going to be talking for the next few days in our devotions about the best policy. And you think about that, of course, probably the most famous statement that you would have with that in it was honesty is the best policy. Well, today we're going to talk about honest things and being honest, if you will. And so I hope that you'll stay with us. Our text is going to be found in Philippians chapter 4. And so you stay with us, and perhaps the Lord will give us something that would be really good. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever known somebody that it seems like they would rather lie than tell the truth, even when the truth would do better than the lie? You know, several years ago, we had a situation happen in another place where we were. We had a school, Christian school, and three students devised a plan to steal one of the teacher's tests. He used the same test all the time for his class, and so they found a way that they could go in and steal the final exam for one of their classes that they had with him. And so the deal was one student was going to steal the test, another student was going to copy the test, and then the third one was going to carry it until they had to dispute it. But there was three of them involved in it. And I remember one of the boys that was involved, they got caught. And of course, number one, they failed that test. And then there was discipline for number one, stealing the test, and then of course for cheating. But one of the boys that did it, they took the test. They did take the test. They actually did it. He had a copy of the stolen test, and then when he took the test with the stolen test in his possession, he made a lower grade on the test than he ever did when he just studied on his own. And I said to the boy, I mean, when we found this out, this kid was in the 10th grade, and we found it out. And I said to him, I said, son, what in the world are you thinking? If you're going to steal a test, what is the point of stealing a test if you're not going to make a better grade than what you made without it? And he said, well, we didn't want anybody to think we made too high a grade. I said, son, you make A's in that class. What are you saying? Well, the thing was, though, they were not honest. That was the key. They were not honest. Well, today we're going to talk about that. And so I hope that you will stay with us for that. You know, in church, funny things happen. Sometimes funny things are said. Sometimes funny things are done. And sometimes you just kind of shake your head at some things. Well, I heard about a church that had a meeting. The pastor and deacons were talking. The finance committee was there because they needed to do some remodeling in the sanctuary. And so they were discussing buying a brand new chandelier. We need a big, bright chandelier for the auditorium. And the pastor said, I think we should buy the chandelier. It will add beauty of the church. It will inspire the congregation if we put that beautiful chandelier there. Well, one of the men in the meeting said, but Pastor, we don't have money to buy a new chandelier. And the pastor responded, don't worry, we'll just raise the ceiling. I don't know what that meant, but I guess there you go. And sometimes in life, people say, we can't do this because, and somebody else says, well, that's okay. We'll just, well, if you're going to raise the ceiling, you might as well buy the chandelier to go on the higher ceiling. I thought that was pretty cute. Our text today is found in Philippians chapter 4. When I was in college, one of my teachers, Dr. Bruce Lackey, who was a tremendous Bible teacher, he was, in fact, he not only was a really good Bible teacher, he was a great musician. And he was one of my favorite people. He was just a real guy. And I really liked Bruce Lackey. He was a very, very proficient piano player. When I was in college, I was a voice major and I was asked to sing in a lot of different things. And one time I was asked to sing in chapel for something, and I didn't have a pianist to play for me. The girl who played for me a lot, she wasn't there, and I couldn't find him. Well, Dr. Lackey heard me say that I could not find somebody to play. I said it in a class of his. And he came up to me after the service. He said, hey, David, he said, I'll play for you. And I thought, are you kidding me? You're going to play for me? It was unbelievable. I thought, you've got to be kidding. He's going to play for me. And he did. And he asked me, he said, so what song are you going to sing? And I told him. He said, I love that song. He said, now what key are you going to do it in? And I told him the key. And he said, no problem. He said, man, we've got it covered. He said, are you going to do 2 verses? I said, yes, sir. He said, at the end of it, he said, instead of taking it down, you want to take it up? I said, yes, sir. I said, that was my intent. He said, Dave said, we've got it. Man, he played for me. He was unbelievable. But he said to me in that, he said, I want to give you a challenge. I said, okay. He said, for this semester of this class, he said, I want you to read the book of Philippians every day. Only has 4 chapters. You can read the whole thing in 10 or 15 minutes. And I said, okay. And for one semester, I wrote the book, or read the book of Philippians. I read it through every day for one full semester. When I got through with that semester, I knew the book of Philippians pretty well. Now, I don't mean I understood everything in it. I don't mean that I was like a walking commentary for it, but I'm telling you, I could just about quote the whole book. And I love it today. Wonderful things in it. And in Philippians chapter 4, the Apostle Paul is giving some things to this wonderful church. It is in this chapter that he says, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. It is also in this chapter where he said, my God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. But in the beginning of it, he starts out with the joy, and that's what he does. And I want you to listen. Philippians 4, 1 through 8. Therefore, my brethren, dearly beloved, and longed for, my joy and crown, so stand fast in the Lord, my beloved. I beseech Eodius and Syntyche that they be of the same mind in the Lord. In other words, don't be separated, be of the same mind. And I entreat thee also, true yokefellow, help those women which labored with me in the gospel, with Clement also, and with other my fellow laborers, whose names are in the book of life. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Let your moderation be known to all men. The Lord is at hand. And then in verse 6, be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your request be made known unto God. And then he follows that in verse 7 with this: if you'll do that, and the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds by Christ Jesus. And then verse 8, finally, brethren. And he gives this list: whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue and there be any praise, think on these things. And that word think there means to set your mind. So the Apostle Paul says we ought to be praying, rejoicing people. And then he says, and I want to give you one more thing. You make sure you set your mind, and the first two things are true and honest. Most are familiar with the old adage that honesty is the best policy. The word honesty has many connotations and can be understood in more than just the thought of truth. The admonition in verse 8 to think on honest things is one of these times. Just before the Lord tells us to think on these things that are honest, he tells us to think on things that are true. In the context of this verse, the Lord is talking about this which has proven itself genuine and worthy of honor. Literally, we are to be thinking on things that are worthy of our giving honor to them. In the day in which we live, many men are revered who should not be held in high regard at all. Many people are revered who really are not the kind of people that ought to be exalted. In Acts chapter 6, when the apostles gave the instruction to the church to choose 7 men to serve as helpers of the apostles, one of the criteria was that they should be of honest report. In the dealings they had among the people, they were to have proven themselves worthy of honor. Honesty in character is becoming more and more rare. Those that are honorable and worthy of being revered are getting fewer and fewer. Those who deal in dishonest business are not honorable, and our minds should not be on them or their works. Anything that steals the character and morality of us or of others is to be marked and should not be the object of affection or attention. Today, this morning early, one of our men was telling me, we were talking about the wickedness of the world. And he said, have you seen the words of a new song that has just come out? That is the rave of people. And I said, no, I have not seen it. He pulled it up and he showed me some. It was wicked, unbelievably wicked. And young girls and young guys and people are falling all over this person and their music. And it is the most ungodly, evil stuff. Well, in our text, we are told to think on things that are true and things that are honest. The word honest comes from a root word that is Latin based on honos, Honos, which means honor, esteem, and is related to moral integrity, respect, or dignity. In other words, worthy of honor. Those who have served our country are said to be worthy of honor. However, those who have not served and yet try to put themselves in the place of those who have served and receive honor for what they did not do, they are said to have stolen valor. Valor is generally associated with courage, bravery, and especially in the face of danger. If a person, even though with military service claims to have been in combat when they were not in combat. That is stolen valor. Paul is saying we need to look for what is true and what is honorable to think on. When we put this in the spiritual context, we can say that those who serve the Lord faithfully are worthy of honor. They have honestly and truthfully served the Lord. Many times we have been around what is not honest or not sincere. We have also been around sincerity and sometimes and did not even realize it. The famous talk show host who was known for his interviews, Larry King, was one time asked in an interview if you could select any one person across all of history to interview, who would it be? Larry King's answer was that he would like to interview Jesus Christ. When the questioner followed that with, "And what would you like to ask him?" King replied, "I would like to ask him if he was indeed virgin born." The answer to that question would define history for me. Well, a famous writer heard that quote and knew that he said it. And he was going to use that in a book that he was writing. And so he wrote a letter and asked for permission from Larry King to use that quote. And Larry King replied back, yes, he can. But he added this, and tell him I was not being facetious. You know what he was saying? I would really ask him that. I would really like to know why. Larry King was a seeker. He wanted to know something, but his problem was he wasn't willing to take what was honest and true. You see, honesty and truthfulness are worthy of honor. When we are honest, that means we are real. There's nothing with it. The Bible talks about in one place, unfeigned faith. That means the real deal. It's not mixed with error. It's true. And we need to understand that what God is looking for is truth lived out honestly. We need to be those that are practicing being honest before the world in our faith and in our declaration. Somebody said this, and I like this quote: honor is never due to anything or anyone who brings dishonor to the Lord or his word. We need to be those that are honest in our life, true in our practice, so that we can bring honor to Christ. He is looking for honorable servants, but it comes from a true heart. It comes from an honest attitude, an honest life, if you will. We want to be those that are not stealing valor, but we are practicing the true, the honest walk with God. God bless you today. I hope you'll join with us again Sunday morning right here at 7:30. God bless you today is my prayer.